Well, on that note, before I forget that, what would you recommend? What's a good mic or a few good mics and a good setup, say, for a home?
Sure.
You know, because I could do those things personally.
Right.
I do demos for other people
Absolutely.
and backgrounds and stuff, so it would be lucrative for me to...
Well, I've got a specific set, and I have to say I'm not associated with any companies out there. Nobody pays me anything under the table to say this, but these are all microphones that I've used personally, so I can vouch for them. I still use them all the time in my studio today. A lot of them are still my go-to mics. And I'm a huge fan of cheap microphones. And I don't mean cheap quality necessarily, but cheap price.
Okay.
We were talking about things that weren't possible 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
One of them was, if you wanted to get a pro studio quality microphone, the minimum price you started at was about $800. And you went up through 1,000 and easily up to 3,000. So this is the the AKG 414, the Neumann U87 mics like that are still wonderful mics. They're in great use, and there's a reason they've been around for years as standards. But it was $800 on up through the thousands. Well, now you can get a very, very functional, very close sounding mic to a lot of the classics, starting in the $50 range.
That's amazing.
And people say there's no way in hell I'm ever going to get a decent sound for $50.
Right.
So where's the catch? The difference is that 414 and that U87 will still be in use 50 years from now. And all the finish will still be on it. And the shock mount that it sits in will still be rock solid and work perfectly. The $50 version might not last 5 years.
Okay.
We really don't know yet because this cheap microphone revolution is very recent. But if it costs $150 or $50 versus $800 or $3,000, you just replace it in 5 years.
Right.
So what it's done is it's given the sound that we want. It's putting that sound into the hands of home recordists. But it's not the kind of mic you're going to be able to bang around every day and do 12-hour sessions every day for months on end. It's not going to hold up. So you start out with those microphones and you work your way up. And I found a set of mics, my absolute favorite microphone in the world for the money, hands down, is the MXL V69 Mogami edition.
Wow.
Or sometimes it's just called the V69 ME.
Okay.
It's $299 on the street. I've recently seen it as low as $269 retail. This is a tube microphone. It's a tube condenser. It doesn't have any roll-off on it. It doesn't have a pad, no special features, no multiple polar patterns or anything. It's just a cardioid condenser mic, but it's a tube mic. And it sounds fabulous.
I'm getting one.
I was a tech editor for Performing Songwriter magazine for 7 years. I did a lot of shootouts among gear.
Awesome.
And one shootout we did was with the V69 against a dozen other mics. And they range from $89 to $5,000 in price.
Okay.
And in a blind test, the V69 blew the pants off of everything else in the particular things we applied it to. So the V69 is my #1 absolute favorite mic in the world. Now that's for vocals. I also use it a lot as a room mic, say on guitar cabinets.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love using condenser tubes for that purpose. But for like acoustic guitar, which is usually the first thing people are looking for, I discovered a pair of microphones a few years ago. Well, backing up a little bit, my favorite mics in the world are called Schoeps mics. They're SHOEPS. They're from Germany.
Okay.
And they start at about $2,500 a pair.
Awesome.
Most of us don't have $2,500 laying around for microphones. And the thing I loved about the sound of these Schoeps mics is they picked up the impact of the strings and the pick and your fingers and stuff in a way that no other microphone did. And I fell in love with these things. This is years ago. Well, along comes a company called SE Electronics, based in China, who make a microphone called the SE1A. And a pair of those cost somewhere around $369 to $400.
Wow.
And they sound fabulous. I call them the poor man's Schoeps.
The quality is just, like you said, it's just so much better than 10 years ago when you could do, I mean, it's available, it's there, it's affordable. And, even what you were saying about getting the right depth and the right spacing in the room. And
well, that is more important. And
right,
this is,
and that's what I would be...
That's the technique side of things.
How would I listen to even know what was...
Well, what I've found really interesting is the marketing of the music industry, gear manufacturers, which is totally understandable. Their strategy of marketing their products is, if you have this product, even if it's an inexpensive product, it will change your life, and it will make your recordings better. Now, it might make it sonically better than what you have, but it's not going to make it production-wise better. As I was a technology editor and I worked with these hundreds of products rather, for several years, the interesting thing is the more deeply that I got involved in the gear and started talking to the real ace producers and engineers all around the world, because I did a lot of interviews with people like that, what I learned was it's less and less about the gear itself. It's what you do with the gear and what you put into the gear. And this is where a lot of people kind of fall a little bit short. They think, if I go out and I buy Pro Tools and I spend $3,000 on a Neumann U87, suddenly my recordings are going to sound like what's on the radio. Right. And then there's some guy down the street who's got the Audio Technica 2020 and a little 2-track recorder, and his recordings sound 10 times better. And the reason is because he knows how to use the gear.